Today I want to talk to everyone about something that might seem a little bit boring at the beginning, but it's very, very important. It's a thing that we report once a year on to the Minister for Local Government via the Audit Office, called the Operating Performance Ratio. And that's a whole heap of gobbledygook that basically means, are we spending within our means and are we breaking even? And breaking even means, are we managing our assets such that when we go to replace them, we've got enough money in the kitty to do so. So, are we spending more than we're earning? At the moment, the answer is yes, and we have been for about 5 years. Are we living within our means? No. The Office of Local Government says our operating performance ratio must break even. We're about minus 11.5% at the moment. We were minus 14 the year before. We have to go right back to 2017 to find when we're slightly above the line. When I say above the line, I'm talking about the break-even line. So this is what we're here to talk about today. So, what does this mean? The number of councils in 2019-2020 that had a poor operating performance ratio was 60. 5 years before that it was only 17. So the whole industry at the moment is going backwards. It's my gut feeling that the number of councils with an operating performance ratio, or the number of councils not breaking even, or the number of councils going backwards, once the Audit Office receives the 2021-2022 financial statements, I think will be over 80. 80 out of 126 councils. So we're not Robinson Crusoe, and we're not much worse or much better than anyone else. So in 2017, our operating performance ratio was 6.4% above the line, which meant that we weren't consuming our assets, or we were spending enough money on our assets to keep them well maintained. It's gone from 6.4 to minus 11.5 in 5 years. So what does this mean? It means that we're not spending, or we're not able to spend, because we haven't got enough money on replenishing or replacing our assets. But it's far, far more complex than that, and this is what we're here to talk about today. If Murray River Council were a car, we'd be putting fuel in, we'd be paying for the rego, we'd be keeping tyres on, but we wouldn't be saving for a major service, and we're certainly not completely saving for replacing the car when it's not economic or it's unserviceable. So it's a slow speed degradation of our finances. What will happen if we don't address what's going on at the moment? Our hard-earned built assets, such as buildings, parks, roads, bridges, water, sewer, you name it, etc., they'll slowly and inevitably deteriorate. With their deterioration, risk will rise. Reactive maintenance costs will skyrocket because we'll be running around putting band-aids on things that we should have been properly managing. The quality of our life will lower because while we're spending money on putting band-aids on, we're not spending money on producing new assets or renewing assets. Our ability to attract visitors and investment will lower, and the blame game will flourish. When the blame game starts happening, our council staff and councillors become sitting ducks. So we need to voluntarily fix these issues. Now, if we don't voluntarily fix the issues, there's quite a few things that might happen. And it's happened at other councils such as Armidale, Balranald and the Central Coast. The Minister will appoint an expenditure controller. Now, if the council refuses to implement a financial improvement program, the council will be put into administration, which is what's happened at the Central Coast, what happened at Armidale, what happened at Balranald. I'm not sure at Windsor Carriby whether it was all finances or it was other issues, but the government doesn't hesitate these days to put the brakes on financially imploding councils. The government can't afford councils to keep going south in relation to their sustainability. The government are partly responsible for councils' lack of sustainability with all the cost shifting and the rates caps, but there's more. In around 2013, 9 years ago, the then Minister for Local Government commissioned a report written by a lady called Jude Munro, who's the ex-Lord Mayor of Brisbane City, Glenn Inglis, who was the ex-CEO of Tamworth City Council, and Professor Graham Sampson from UTS. And the report was called Revitalising Local Government, and there were 65 recommendations. This was the precursor to the Fit for the Future implementation, which was done in 2014, and subsequently amalgamations in 2016 and 2017. Over the last few weeks, I've spoken to lots of CEOs and also the Local Government New South Wales and people in the New South Wales country mayors, and even CEOs in other states, because Queensland went through this in 2016 as well. I've spoken to lots of people, and nobody is suggesting another round of amalgamations, as quite frankly, New South Wales has bigger problems at the moment, as does the whole country. But there's likely going to be something initiated by the Office of Local Government through the Minister, and possibly even Treasury. There's likely going to be something forced upon local government, because the state government just can't sit back and say it's getting worse and worse and worse without doing anything. What that is, nobody knows. It's not expected immediately because, as I said at the beginning, the state's in such disarray with so many different things at the moment. Flooding, coastal inundation, the problems caused in the northern rivers by flooding are going to cost billions, not hundreds of millions to fix, and so on and so forth. But something will happen. It would put Murray River Council in a better situation if we got our house in order financially first, before whatever that something happens. We can be the victims of change, or we can be the architects of it. It's our choice. So why am I talking to staff about this, and what does this mean? It's actually quite simple. Just like the Voice project and just like everything that we've done, I'm just not going to come in one day and say we're doing this. It's my job to engage staff that run their businesses to work out better solutions from the bottom up, not the top down. So this is what I'm asking staff to do, and this is what we'll be working on in the next 2 years. We've got to look at outcomes, not rules or historic-based thinking or historic-based decision-making. The most dangerous words in local government at the moment are "that's the way we've always done it." We've got to utilise our assets. We've got $10 million worth of yellow gear that's only used 9 days a fortnight at the moment. That's just not on. We've got to dispose of poorly utilised assets. If we're not using it, why are we depreciating it? Why are we maintaining it? We've got to look outside our borders and work out how we can do things for other councils and how other councils can do things for us, where it's financially and practical to do so. We've got to adopt fresh practices. Again, that's how we've always done it, isn't going to help us be in charge of our own destiny. And we've got to start thinking, if it was our personal money, would we operate or spend it differently? Not, oh, it's someone else's money. Well, the someone else's money is the ratepayers, and how we spend it and how we use it, the lens is going to be applied to us when the Office of Local Government or the Minister for Local Government work out whatever they're going to do and do it. I can assure you that the lens will be applied. So we're doing a lot of things already. Some of them we're doing a little bit of, some of them we're doing a lot of, some of them we've only just started, and I've been pretty happy with what I've been witnessing so far. So the first thing I want you to all think about is sweating assets. Now that's just a colloquial expression for making sure we get bang for the buck out of all the expensive kit we own. From graders to photocopiers, it makes no difference. We own lots of stuff. We've got to make sure we're getting our money's worth out of it and we're applying it as often as possible to value add for the community. So in private enterprise it's called sweating assets or utilisation of assets. We've got to reduce, where possible, discretionary spending. And I want every manager to work with their staff on this, and I'm going to audit it and report on it in the monthly operation report. We've got to work with other councils and get other councils to do things that we haven't got time to do, and us to do things for other councils where we've got capacity, and it may be even a little bit of both, such that we can create an artificial economy of scale to do things more effectively. I think that's really, really important. That can only really be done at a director and a CEO level though. I'm not asking staff to do that. That's something that I've got to do with my directors and directors from other councils around the place. We've started a thing called a revenue task force, and it's headed by the Mayor. Now, John Harvey's been taken away from his substantive position and he's Director of Special Projects, and he's leading the charge with looking at new revenue. We had our third meeting on the 7th of June, so that's going quite well. And I think it's going to be a big success, and I think a lot of other councils are going to copy us. Number 5, we've got to stop cross-subsidising water, sewer and waste. Now, you might think, well, we're not cross-subsidising water, sewer and waste. Well, we are. Now, water charges, waste charges and sewer charges are a charge, they're not a rate. And under the Local Government Act, we're supposed to break even on it. So if we're cross-subsidising water, sewer and waste, we're actually paying for it out of the general fund, and the general fund, or the normal rates, is capped by the Independent Pricing and Regulatory Tribunal. And this year, and probably for the next 10 years, is going to be capped at 2%. So we've got to fix up and stop cross-subsidisation of water, sewer and waste. Number 6, we've got to sell some services. Now, I'm not real keen on private works because there's always hidden subsidies in private works, but there are some other things that are a little bit more straightforward, or, for example, private works to main roads, to Transport New South Wales, where we can make good money. There are some things that we should look at. Number 7, energy management. We're well on the way to working out what to do with this. And if we were a hill, everyone would have walked up the hill, and we're currently on the top of the hill about to do the easy bit, which is go down the other side and walk downhill. So we're a long way advanced with this, but we're not there yet. So we're going to manage our energy more effectively and we're going to have cheaper energy. It's a long-term thing. Net payback period will be about 8 years for most stuff, but we're well on the way and we've got to continue with that. Number 8, we may have to go to 7-day-a-week operations to make sure we're sweating our yellow assets and our heavy gear. How that happens and when it happens with our weather patterns here, with short days in the winter and it's too wet to do much. In the summer we've got long days but it's very dry, and we're a flat area predominantly. How we do that, that's yet to be determined, and when we do it's yet to be determined. But I'm pretty confident that we're going to have to change our normal rostering system if we're to stay competitive, and if we're going to ensure that we're not going to get stones thrown at us in the future. The next one, we've got to review our depreciation rates and what we depreciate. See, what happens in local government, all our assets, which adds up to hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars, I think it's about $750 million or thereabouts, we've got to depreciate that each year. And what we should be depreciating, we should be putting back into repairing and renewing the assets. So if we artificially raise the value of what we own up, we'll be spending more money unnecessarily on replenishing assets, and it'll make us look like we're financially worse than what we are. Now, I can't put my finger on it, but my gut feeling is we're between 5 and 15% over-capitalised with with the total amount of money that we've said we should be depreciating. Now, that doesn't sound much, but a 10% change in our depreciation schedule is a very large amount of money that will make a big difference to our operating performance ratio. And the last thing, which we've been doing quite well lately, we've got to talk to each other about this, and we've got to write it down the MOR on the new section, such that when we get to the stage where the OLG or someone starts throwing stones at us, we can say, can you go and help someone else? Because we've already done this, and these are all the things that we've improved in our own internal operations. So communication, it's the same with culture, it's the same with business disciplines such as the accountability framework. Communication about all of these things is going to be the key, and working together and keeping the end in mind, and the end in mind is going to be, in this instance, is how do we break even? If we don't work together and we don't keep the end in mind, someone will introduce something. It's inevitable as the sun coming up. Someone down the track will introduce new ways of doing things which might not suit how our council should operate and supply services. I haven't got a lot of faith in the state government with their cookie cutter approach to how they should do things, because most things that they give us are 80% at best. Puppy farms, the planning portal, even the way the grants have to be reconciled with the timelines with that, which COVID didn't help. The underground petroleum storage systems, the Vulnerable Persons and Children's Protection Act with no money to implement it. The list goes on and on and on. So I haven't got a lot of faith in the state government coming up with solutions to help us. But I have got a lot of faith in us coming up with our own solutions to help ourselves. Have a think about it, sweat assets, reduce discretionary spending. I'll be working with our directors about how to work better with other councils. We've had this is our third meeting this coming week with the cross-border with Campaspe. I've been meeting with the Mayor and CEO of Edward River. The Mayor, Chris, is leading the Revenue Task Force. Finance and Water, Sewer and Waste are going to be looking at how to fix the cross-subsidisation of water, sewer and waste. We're going to be selling some professional services. We're going to be looking at our energy management. We may end up having to go to a 7-day-a-week operations. I'm unsure about that, but what I am sure about is that we've got some graders that we paid $440,000 for that do 20 hours a week, and others that only do 17 hours a week. Now, if I was a private plan owner, I would not go and spend $400,000 and operate something 20 hours a week. And lastly, we're going to review our depreciation rates and the quantum that we're depreciating. So the reason I'm doing this video is because normally when I talk to staff, I'll do a presentation, and I might have to do 4 of them, and all of the presentations are slightly different. So this time, instead of being different and the different messages getting out, which, you know, you do your best, but 80% of the same is probably the best I've ever done. So this way, 100% of the message gets out to everyone, and everyone gets a chance to ask questions, and I'll be responding to everyone via another video once you ask me the questions, so that everyone gets the same answers for that as well. Thank you.